Welcome to Bisons, Cabbages, and Honor, the podcast where we talk about every episode of Avatar the Last Airbender. I am Matthew, and here with me is the Phoenix Queen herself, Aubrey.
Yay!
For we are all phoenixes, rising anew each day.
So deep.
Yeah, not really. A phoenix is a pretty simple concept in a way. But anyway, we are here again, second episode of the podcast, continuing our love of Avatar and talking about Avatar. So, before we get started, do you have anything you want to say, Aubrey, about our first or second episodes of the process?
No, get ready.
Oh, well, you heard it here first. We have to get ready. All right, so episode 2, and as is our tradition with these 2 episodes, we are going to kind of alternate doing the plot summaries before we get into the real deep talk. So this time it's going to be me doing the episode summary. So we pick up almost immediately after where episode 1 left off. Aang and Katara, having accidentally set off the booby-trap flare at the old Fire Nation ship, now return to the village to find the whole village, obviously having seen the flare and waiting for them. Both Gran and Sokka are not pleased with this. Sokka accuses him of, doing it intentionally, which probably is a little ridiculous, but whatever. Katara defends him and initially says she's going to go with Aang because she's going to go to the North Pole with him and she's going to find a water-bending master, but then Sokka pulls the are you going to turn your back on your family card? And Aang doesn't want to make her make that choice, so he decides to go on his own. He doesn't really go far, though, before he sees the Fire Nation ship bearing down on the village and decides, I'm going to go help. We cut back to the village. We see Sokka getting ready for battle. He's putting on the traditional Water Tribe battle accoutrements, cool face paint and stuff, and he puts on some nice armor? I don't know. The Fire Nation ship literally just crashes through the side of the village, making a mockery of any defenses they have. Zuko with a couple guards descend and just kind of swats poor Sokka aside. He tries his best. Mm-hmm. He tries his best. Zuko, still operating under the assumption that the Avatar is going to be like an old master, starts interrogating the village like, where are you hiding him? Sokka tries again and manages to annoy Zuko enough that Zuko starts kind of possibly threatening him, just kind of with a look and some firebending. But then Aang shows up and starts kind of fighting with the Fire Nation guys before quickly realizing that this could obviously cause harm to the young villagers just with collateral damage. So he agrees to go with Zuko under the promise that the village is left alone. So Aang departs with the firebenders. Katara is almost immediately dead set after going after them and thinks Sokka will be resistant to this because of Sokka's early hostility, but Sokka has changed his mind and is like, you're going to come with? I'm going to go save him. Gran sees them off. She feels now that it's been revealed that Aang is the Avatar, that they found him for a reason, and she feels it's their destiny to go after him. We cut back to the Fire Nation ship. Aang is being escorted to the brig. He's separated from his glider staff. He quickly overpowers his guards and starts running throughout the ship super fast, thanks to airbending, looking for his staff, which he finds in Zuko's room with Zuko. They have a neat little fight in kind of a confined space before Aang kind of just overpowers Zuko, escapes almost with his staff by hang gliding off the top of the ship before Zuko grabs him and brings him back down. Sokka and Katara arrive just in time to see Aang knocked off the side of the ship, possibly to a watery grave, before something mysterious and magical happens. Aang's eyes begin to glow and he rises up into the air out of the water on a huge spout of water. He's waterbending. And knocks a whole bunch of firebender troops around and nearly knocks Zuko off the ship. He unfortunately then collapses onto the ship and is nearly helpless, but Katara and Sokka swoop in to help him. Some shenanigans with waterbending and Zuko being persistent happen, and then they make their escape on the back of Flying Appa. Zuko now is even more determined to catch the Avatar, and we essentially end the episode with them kind of laying out the skeleton of how the plot's going to proceed from here, because it is stated that legend says the Avatar has to master the elements in a certain order. And the first one is water, so Aang realizes they can go to the North Pole as planned, Katara can get her own waterbending instruction, and Aang can learn waterbending at the same time. And Sokka agrees to go so he can beat up some firebenders. And thus mostly ends episode 2. I went into quite a lot of detail there. I may need to try and trim that down in future.
No, that's fine.
All right. Whew, I did a lot of talking. Aubrey, you do some talking. What are your initial thoughts about this episode?
I feel it was a good beginning to the rest of the series. It establishes the characters enough that you figured out, who and what they stand for. And yeah. They have yet to expand on the world, but that goes on into later episodes. And overall, this was a solid just introduction to the world of Avatar.
Yes. I very much agree. A few things I noted in the episode that very much kind of will be indicative of the series going forward. Aang's interesting kind of fighting style that is very kind of both defensive and kind of just non-combatant. He's just always kind of moving off the line of the attack and using kind of his speed just to get around people. At one point, Zuko is trying to kind of face him, and Aang's just going back to him, and they're just kind of spinning around each other. It also showed the tradition of poor Zuko kind of getting embarrassed in fights. Aang just kind of smacks him into the ceiling with his own mattress in his bedroom on the ship there. Which will become a bit of a trend, I find, sometimes with the show of Zuko getting kind of embarrassed in a fight.
Yeah, you were talking about Aang's fighting style. Now, in each of the bending arts is actually based off of a real martial art.
Indeed. I can't remember them all, personally.
Waterbending is Tai Chi. Firebending is Shaolin Kung Fu.
I think so. Possibly Northern? I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. And then airbending is Bao Gu Zhang. And earthbending is Hungar. I apologize for my inability to pronounce these. I
should mention, going forward, either of us here are experts in anything. Mm-hmm. So we are going to get little things wrong, especially pronunciation and technical details. We apologize. We're not experts. We're just fans.
We're experts at being fans.
The only thing I remember about, I remember one of the special features on the DVDs, they talked about the different fighting styles. The one that airbending is based on there's a great deal of emphasis on circles. Mm-hmm. I think I remember, which you can really tell too, it's just with the movement of air, how Aang uses his staff to kind of deflect firebending attacks. It's just kind of a windshield where he just circles his staff. It
is a nice contrast to see, especially in that little room.
Yes, that we don't get a lot of really close quarter fighting in the show. I kind of think.
Yeah, I got kind of claustrophobic because I realized with air and fire, those are very especially fire. It's a very volatile element.
Yeah, especially in closed spaces. I mean, if the room is sealed and they just kept going for a while, they would run out of oxygen because Zuko would just burn it all up. They would just suffocate from carbon dioxide.
Until one of them opens the door.
Yes, until one of them opens the door. But Zuko closed it, and this is a ship, so the doors are probably watertight.
This is true. It's true.
But enough about hypothetical deaths in small rooms in children's shows. One thing that kind of stuck out to me about this episode that was a little odd, but I completely understand why they did it. When Aang is captured... Actually, two things that happen in pretty quick succession. One, when they've left the village with Aang in their custody... they're having this little face-off on the deck or something where Zuko takes the staff. He's like, "Oh, this will make a good gift for my father. But I suppose you wouldn't know anything about fathers being raised by monks." And the way he says it, it's almost supposed to be a burn or something, or condescension. I'm like, where is this coming from, Zuko? I know you have issues with your father, but why are you fixating on the fact that, airbenders don't have traditional father figures? Haha, gotcha.
Oh.
What?
I'm guessing it's because the Fire Nation, they have very traditional values. This is my guess.
It's very possible.
Considering the way they run their army and everything.
And Zuko, and as sort of mentioned, Zuko's entire arc is sort of about father figures.
Mm-hmm. And honor.
And honor! And secondly, And this part I understand why they did it. Like, you'd think this is supposed to be a big moment of the quest. They've captured the Avatar. This could be, a changing point in Zuko's life. Iroh has nothing to say. Zuko tells him to put the staff in his room. He passes off the thing, and the next time we see Iroh, he's asleep in his room.
Yeah.
I'm like, you think Iroh would want to talk about Zuko? Not to mention, I would think he'd almost say, now, Zuko, don't get your hopes up about your father, rewarding you. He really intended this trip as a wild goose chase to get rid of you. Your father's kind of a jerk.
At the same time, as his uncle, as his father figure, and his relative, he probably thought, well, he has the Avatar. Maybe this is his chance to get back in his father's good graces.
Yeah, and plus, I imagine there's almost so much time in the episode.
That's true. You can only flesh out Iroh so much.
Yes.
Because there's just so much to him.
Yes. And it's probably a little early, too, to really delve into the bad dynamic between Zuko and his dad.
Oh, yes.
That just needs to be background stuff for now.
It's all implied, really. He banished me, and then now to restore my honor.
Yeah. Also, I would like to point out that this is, of course, an observation tainted by knowledge of further episodes, but we come to know Sokka as a very kind of logical and creative and inventive guy in later episodes. He comes up with all sorts of neat strategies and neat gadgets, and at one point they lampshade the fact that he's the one who comes up with the plans.
Oh, yeah.
This episode, his best plan is to charge at a numerically superior foe who's probably better armed and trained, just straight at them. I mean, it's played for laughs and everything. Zuko literally just bats him aside with the back of his hand, like, oh, the disrespect.
Well, that's all he has.
Yes, but couldn't have set up like an ambush or something, or had some gadgets, like a catapult to shoot snow?
I'm not sure. All they have are igloos.
Someone throws wood in a fire at one point, and I nearly shouted at the screen, where did you get that? We have not seen a single tree. Also, I did wonder, like, is everything in the village made from hunted things? Like, is this a very, very kind of... Like, I will admit, and I feel bad admitting this as a Canadian, I don't know a great deal about the real kind of lifestyle of the real-life Inuit people. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know how, like, did 90% of all the stuff they have in their life come from animals? Or, they had sleds and snowshoes, right? Those had some wood in them because there are trees on the tundra.
I'm guessing there's trees somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere. Again, not enough time in the episode to show. And here's where we got all the wood you see from. Moving on.
Oh, yeah. One of my favorite parts of the episode, it was more comedic than anything, where Sokka goes to attack Zuko, and then Zuko, like, snaps a stick in half, and then, like, he bops him in the head.
Yes.
And then later in the episode, Sokka does the same to him, and I'm like, oh, cute, that's balance.
Yes.
Balance.
It is a great thing. I think that sort of thing happens to Zuko a lot, like what I was mentioning, like the tradition of Zuko kind of getting a fool made of him. Like, he'll have good, badass moments, and then something very silly will happen to kind of deflate the grandeur.
Oh, yeah, like how he was, like, attacked by a mattress in that room there.
Yes, and just like, all right, we're having this great fight, I'm just going to smack you against the wall with your own mattress.
Oh, that was beautiful.
Yeah. It reminds me, this is a little off topic, but I remember reading or watching a video about Thor Ragnarok, which was directed by Taika Waititi, I think his name is, and he is from New Zealand, I believe.
All right.
And apparently a lot of the humor in the movie is based on kind of humor in the traditions of New Zealand, where anytime you have someone who starts to, puff themselves up and act all important, you immediately deflate it. Like, Thor starts making some big heroic speech, and he throws a ball, bounces right off the wall, and smacks him in the face. And that's, I don't know, there's like a vein of that, which might be just sort of the thing they do, to appeal to the younger audience, and older audiences enjoy some good slapstick, too.
I guess it also softens up the villains a little bit.
Yes.
Especially with Zuko and Iroh, because ultimately, spoilers, they end up not being the villains all along. Yes.
And you're never supposed to look like the general who shows up in probably just a few episodes, who's sort of a Zhao, yes, for antagonist for the season. He is sort of made to be, competent and dangerous and stuff, but they still kind of make fun of him sometimes. Mm-hmm. Later on in the series, when Ozai shows up, there's nothing comedic about him. We are meant to take him seriously.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Except for that dream sequence Aang has. Yeah. You're not wearing any pants. No!
There's this one moment that kind of bothered me with Zuko talking.
Mm-hmm.
It sounded like Dante Bosco, the voice actor for Zuko, was attempting at some sort of royal or British accent, and it rubbed my ear the wrong way.
At what point?
They were on the ship, and he was talking to Aang. Like, he already captured him, and he's like, oh yeah, this is for my father, and it sounded like he was attempting at an accent, which I'm glad he didn't stick with.
Yeah, they were probably still finding the voices for these characters in a way. I'm kind of glad that they didn't try giving any of the nations in this series a really obvious accent. That could have gone very badly, I think.
I guess so. Plus, it was just easier to appeal to American audiences to have everyone have, I guess, American accents.
I just mean when giving people in a show an accent, especially ones based a lot on, for the most part, Eastern cultures, like both the Fire Nation, the Air Nomads, and the Earth Kingdom are all based on like Eastern cultures. There's like Tibetan monks, China, and Japan with a little bit of kind of, I think, Indian or Polynesian thrown in. Mm-hmm. If you do a bad version of that accent, it can sound like an offensive caricature. So I'm glad they didn't even bother to take that risk.
They did go with southern accents later on.
Oh,
like the Swamp people.
Wow.
But that's a bit different.
Yes. I don't think anyone's going to be terribly offended by Swamp people. Plus, they were shown to actually, despite their odd mannerisms, there's a wisdom to the Swamp people. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. In a fun way. But we're getting ahead of ourselves again. A lovely little call forward I saw, in a way, in the fight in the room. Mm-hmm. Zuko's two swords are visible on the wall.
Foreshadowing.
Possibly the Blue Spirit mask, too.
There
was a mask, but I didn't get a good look at it.
One thing I really liked when Katara was like, hey, we gotta go save Aang, and like she thinks Sokka was not gonna be on her side, and then he's basically like, yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, I'm already there.
I like the idea that even though they have these contrasting viewpoints and opinions, they both have the same moral code, which is basically the driving force of this group, their morality, especially Katara.
Well, here's an interesting question for you then. Initially, when Katara is saying, if you're making Aang leave too, or if you're making Aang leave, I'm going to leave too. Is she being selfish there?
She's being impulsive.
Okay.
That's basically it. You have to remember, Sokka and Katara are siblings, and it's natural for them to just butt heads. And sometimes she gets impulsive. A lot of times she gets impulsive. That's just her. And
I suppose being there when the whole booby trap thing was set off, she is hyper aware of what actually happened, that it wasn't anyone's fault, really. Mm-hmm. It was a dumb mistake. And so she probably does not react well to Sokka, who is overreacting in a way. Sokka immediately goes from, this thing happened to, Aang's a traitor, you're trying to draw the Fire Nation right to us.
It was kind of ridiculous, but they've also been attacked by Fire Nation
and
military.
As kind of I raised this point, I think, a little in the last episode, Sokka is very focused on this responsibility that he's given to, and he's kind of overcompensating in a way. Mm-hmm. He sees something that might possibly threaten the village, and he just automatically condemns it wholeheartedly.
Oh, that scene where Sokka and Zuko were getting ready for battle, and essentially they were just sort of switching back and forth, and seeing these two teenage boys essentially get ready for war, quote unquote. I thought that was kind of neat, because you got to see one, how like their soldiers from the different cultures dress up as, and two, with Zuko's scene, he's being put together by his servants or by his men,
as befits royalty.
When Sokka is alone in a tent, like putting war paint on his face, and that's pretty neat too. Sort of showing the contrast between the two.
Yeah, you could make a lot out of the contrast there.
Mm-hmm. And, they're both the same age, too.
Yeah, I think, and maybe at most Zuko might be a little older.
Maybe?
I don't know, maybe they just grow taller in the Fire Nation.
I guess so.
Yeah. Then again, he's got the top knot, I think, so that might be cheating a little.
That makes him a bit taller.
Yeah. Sokka's got more, what I think it's called like a wolf tail or something, the hairstyle. I don't know, it's like a top knot on the back of your head. It's not a ponytail.
So this episode is the first instance of the Avatar state.
Yes. I had one interesting observation about the Avatar state in this episode. It's something that occurred to me. Throughout the series, we end up seeing like kind of images of past avatars invoking the Avatar state. Mm-hmm. What is it about the Air Nation tattoos that makes them glow? Because all the other avatars, it's just their eyes, and I think maybe sometimes their mouth to be extra intimidating. Mm-hmm. Like, I wonder if when the tattoos are put on, it somehow interacts with the chakra points.
I'm guessing it's.
I know it's probably
thing.
Plus it's just spiritual. Like the Air Nation is kind of, or the Air Nomads are portrayed as the most spiritual of the different nations, and it's probably just done for effect in the show because it is a really cool visual.
It does look pretty.
But
awesome.
I don't know. I'd be kind of interested to hear some sort of in-universe explanation for it. I'm now going to put my phone on the carpet so it doesn't buzz on the table. Yeah. I also liked when Aang's about to leave, one of the random children runs up and says in a very cute voice, "I don't want you to go, I'll miss you." And Aang says, "I'll miss you too." And in my head he says, "I'll miss you too, nameless child."
Yeah, and it was it's one of those manipulative moments, and I was like, what an annoying child, but she's also adorable.
Yeah, and I think they really wanted to establish too that the children still like and trust Aang.
Yeah.
Gran is very practical in the sense like, oh, he's, possibly, brought danger on us, he should go. And Sokka is overcompensating by, condemning him as a traitor and stuff, but the children still love him. Mm-hmm. The children.
So Aang reveals that he didn't want to be the Avatar in this episode.
Yes, though he doesn't go into that, and there's an interesting moment where there's just kind of quiet, and they play this sad kind of little twanging music, and there's a dark cloud passes overhead for a moment. I
found out what that song is. It's called Safe Return. And they use it consistently.
They do. Mm-hmm. I think I remember getting a little choked up a few times when they use it in this series because it's often in very somber moments.
Oh, yes. Tear bending.
Can we talk about for a moment that the music in this show, even this early on, is great?
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeremy Zuckerman?
Oh, I don't know. I'm very bad with specific names.
That's okay. All is forgiven.
I'm sorry, Andrea.
Oh, okay, Max.
Oh, touche. Anyway, let's see. What other notes did I have?
Katara first demonstrates some competent water bending, which was pretty neat.
Yes, especially considering in the first episode she was, struggling to lift a single fish in a single globe of water. She super had to concentrate and she lost it really easily. Mm-hmm. Now, she makes a mistake and then she kind of corrects it really quickly.
Yeah, that was pretty neat. Until that scene where she freezes Sokka.
Well, that's what I'm saying. First she tries, freezes Sokka, and then, all right, she's like, analyzes that. Okay, I'll just do the opposite direction. That's how to do this. She's an intelligent, she's capable of learning. She's not perfect, mind you. She's not a savant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Notice Iroh doesn't get a lot here in this episode.
No, but again, as I kind of pointed out, probably for time.
Mm-hmm. Let's see.
Also, going back to that one line I found a little odd about fathers and stuff, it never occurred to me that, pardon me, the Air Nomads apparently don't have kind of the traditional family dynamic. They just raise people as a community?
That's what it seems like, because that's what Zuko says. He's like, oh yeah, you were raised by monks.
Yeah.
Like, that's a bad thing.
Is interesting and makes me want to have a whole discussion now about what we later learn about Aang's parenting skills. Because that's a whole discussion.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But very different circumstances, mind you. He's not a member of an Air Nation at that point.
Yeah, the Air Nation is dead. And that's not spoilers, that's established.
No, yeah. That has been established pretty much now. And possibly will be established very graphically soon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just interesting. Like, this is the threads that I always want to pull on in the show. Just the real nitty-gritty world building.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like the fight between Sokka and Zuko. But Sokka's clearly outclassed and outskilled.
Yes.
But that one moment where he throws Boomerang, and then Boomerang comes back and smacks Zuko right in the head. That was a beautiful moment. That is classic Sokka.
Yeah.
That is the embodiment of Sokka, essentially.
Also, poor Zuko, when Aang first blows in, Zuko gets, like, knocked over, his helmet goes flying, and then lands on his butt while Zuko's lying face first on the ground. I'm like, wow, the Prince of the Fire Nation, everyone.
Yeah, I kind of feel bad for him sometimes, because you realize he's banished, and he probably has no one's respect.
Though, to be fair, have they actually stated yet that he's banished? They may have said, I need to find the Avatar to reclaim my honor or something, and he has a scar, but we have no knowledge yet. I think that might not really come up until the Storm, which I hear is a very popular episode.
Oh yeah,
for probably good reasons.
It's a good episode.
Yeah. Also, they're completely abandoning now, both with the proper intro they put in and the title of the episode, any sort of mystery about who the Avatar is.
Yeah.
Episode 2, The Avatar Returns.
Yeah,
and the intro just spells out the series. It's just the normal intro now.
Yeah, that's the intro
new
that
Avatar
they use. Yeah, that's the intro they use for the rest of the series, which is nice because I didn't like that empty space they had at the beginning.
No, it was very noticeable for people who have actually seen the series. But overall, I think this was a good episode now because we now have brought the two sides of this kind of conflict together. We've seen Zuko and Aang sort of interact. We've seen, to an extent, Sokka and Zuko interact. And we've seen how Katara can handle herself in a fight and everything. And we got to see Appa fly, which is an important thing because that becomes a huge point of the series.
It's kind of very important that he flies, or else they wouldn't get anywhere.
It is a very useful plot convenience. Which is funny, too, because none of the other nations really seem to have companion animals. They have the animals that, taught them firebending, for instance, like the dragons, and there's the badger moles, which were the original earthbenders. But none of them, apparently, have close bonds with their respected benders. Sky bisons seem like they are integrated deeply into air nomad culture.
They're kind of really needed, though. Also, Sky Bisons were also the ones that taught people how to airbend.
So, I wonder if there's something to be said, too, I suppose, then, for the air nomads not drifting apart from the people who taught them bending. All the other nations, like the Fire Nation, hunted the dragons eventually. And the badger moles just seem to be an animal. It seems like those cultures have gotten away from their roots.
I think that's what makes the airbenders so spiritual.
Yes. Yeah. They're close to nature. They're all vegetarians, apparently.
Yeah, I think Aang states it in one of the episodes that he's a vegetarian.
Aang, friend to all living things.
Ah.
Even Fire Lords.
No, I don't.
Well, not. Anyway, wow, that's a whole discussion for the final episode of the series, so we'll not get into that. I've made in discussions I've had with you, I think, and other people over the years, I've put a lot of praise on the fight choreography in Avatar and later in Korra, especially, and the fact that they actually had martial arts master on the show advising them. Sifu's, I can't remember his name, sadly. I will look it up. I promise I'll look it up. I apologize, but I don't know. With the exception of a couple little moments in the Zuko Aang fight in the room, the fight seemed a little more basic at the start of the series.
Oh, that's fine. Because first of all, they were in a room.
Yeah, but
you don't want anything too complicated.
Well, no, but it just the fights didn't seem to flow as smoothly as they do in later episodes.
Oh yeah, well, once again, it's the first.
Yes.
Two
They may
episodes.
they may not have brought on the primo fight choreographer that they had.
Speaking of the rawness of the episodes, of the first few episodes, there's this one scene where Aang is running in the ship, and the background looks like it's been crudely drawn, and it just sticks out. And I'm like, yeah, I'm glad they got a bigger budget later on.
Yeah. Think of some of the stuff in the Earth Nation or the Earth Kingdom later in Ba Sing Se. Some of those backgrounds are very impressive.
Oh yeah, it's gorgeous.
Yeah. Especially when they start tearing it up for earthbending fights.
Well, the Earth Kingdom is kind of massive, so
It is. It's big. I don't know. I don't think I have any other notes for this episode. Again, as I kind of mentioned earlier, it's a lot of place setting. We didn't expand on the world that much. We saw interactions between characters that sort of maybe laid the template for how things are going to go in future, especially between Aang and Zuko, and possibly to an extent Sokka and Zuko.
well, they're 16-year-old boys. They have much to relate.
Yes. Also, Sokka's final comment of the episode where Katara's like, and Sokka, you'll get to bang some Fire Nation heads together, and Sokka's like, I'd like that. I'd like that a lot. And I'm like, do you just mean beat them up, Sokka, or are you wanting to kill them? Because if you want to, that's a creepy thing to say, like, yeah, I'm going to murder some of those guys.
Well, once again, it's a war.
I know they're at war, but he's a 16-year-old boy or something, maybe. Like, oof.
So is Zuko, and he's
yes,
the
but
character.
I think, especially considering his father, he's probably been. Well, remember, he was invited to a war council at one point. That's a lot more than probably just being raised as a hunter and a warrior in the Water Tribe.
Yeah, that's much later.
Especially for a culture that hasn't been prosecuting a war for 100 years. But
well, yeah, this was essentially the continuation of the first episode, so yeah, I feel like it was a solid way to start the series. Sets up everything, sets up character dynamics, character traits that you see for the rest of the series, and it's pretty solid.
Yeah. And of course, these are half-hour episodes at most, so they do well with the time they're given.
All right.
Out of 5, Aubrey, how many turtle duck eggs would you give this episode?
A solid 4.
I would agree. Any complaints I have really are just kind of, looking backwards, 2020 kind of thing. Like, oh, now that I've had years to think about this, they could have done this better. But yeah, solid episode. Good laying of groundwork for the rest of the series, and especially in terms of character interactions, and it makes me think I would be interested to see where it goes from there, especially now as they're journeying out into the wider world. Also, I'll be curious to see if next episode the 2 Water Tribe siblings lose their parkas. Because if memory serves, they don't spend a lot of time wearing those, actually, in the series proper. But
No, not really. They keep it somewhere, though.
yeah. Well, I think there's a big kind of wrapped up storage area on Appa's saddle.
Yeah, I'm guessing so. He's like a trailer.
He is a Winnebago.
Big furry one. Probably smells weird, though.
Probably.
All right.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it for us then today. That is the second episode of Sky Bisons, Cabbages, and Honor. I am Matthew.
And I'm Aubrey.
And we look forward to discussing Avatar again for episode 3. Good night, everyone. Catchphrase.